G'day guys, Simon Chapman here from SpeedCafe.com, joined by Speed Cafe editor Connor O'Brien, and we are here in Pertec Victory Lane to preview the 2022 Repco Supercars Championship and have a chat about who we think might end up on that podium at the end of this weekend. Right, well, let's start down the bottom end of pit lane. Unfortunately for these guys, the Blanchard Racing team, they've found themselves sort of, I guess, mixed up in all of the team's racing charter sort of mess. Unfortunately, we've got an odd number of cars on the grid this year, so they are obviously the only one-car team.
Yep, so they've found themselves, right down the end, rather than being up with Tickford, who had 3 cars last year. Also, there's a bit of good and bad because, they don't have to worry about any double stacking in pit lane, which we can see when there's a safety car, it gets pretty hectic in here. However, you need to have now a full crew all supplied by yourself, which isn't ideal as a one-car operation. And, there is a strategic advantage of being up towards pit exit. So, bit of good and bad, but I mean, it's probably, in the end, it's going to come down to their pace and what they showed last year, maybe, they should be pretty promising, I reckon.
Yeah, I guess sort of their place in the pit lane down this end isn't really sort of indicative of what they're capable of, but I'm interested to see sort of the new combo there, obviously, with, I guess, the quote-unquote DJR engine and obviously the Tickford chassis.
Yeah, exactly. To be honest, the general consensus is that the Tickford chassis is probably the better chassis and the DJR engine is probably the better engine, so these guys have got the best of both worlds. I'd really expect them to move into the top 10 and look to be one of the leading Mustangs sort of on the grid. So, solid combination, all stable, Tim Slade, Tim Blanchard, Mirko de Rosa, Brendan Hogan, all these guys. So, can't see that they're going anything but up for these guys.
Big talking point in the off-season obviously was that of Team Sydney, which went under and has now effectively become Premier Racing. Peter Giberis taking over that team. Connor, this is a really interesting setup, isn't it, with Chris Pitter and Gary Jacobson? Yeah,
it's to be honest, I think there's a lot of excitement around these guys. Pete has come in with a lot of enthusiasm and willingness to invest, and they've come in and they've said they're going to have the best equipment and give these guys every chance. So I'm sure it's going to take a bit of time. I don't expect these guys to be much higher than the sort of 18, 20 sort of mark at this stage, but it should be before long. Once they've kind of got their feet under the desk and all that sort of stuff, I expect these guys, it'd be great to see guys like Chris and Gary, who've been sort of a bit journeymen sort of the championship, see them have the opportunity to run a bit higher.
Matt Stone Racing's an interesting prospect this year, isn't it, Connor? Obviously, with Todd Hazelwood and Jack LaRock joining the team. Yeah,
well, funnily enough, I guess they all kind of mirror each other of their careers. Like, each Matt Stone Racing, Todd Hazelwood, Jack LaRock, all into their 5th year in the main game. They've all had little glimmers of success, but haven't quite brought it all together. But I mean, these guys have invested. They've brought Pete Bale, former F1 team manager, in, got him up from Brad Jones Racing. They've got 2 more experienced guys than they had last year. So I think these guys are hopeful that they can make another step forward into maybe closer to the top 10.
Now we're down at Kenwright Racing, where the really cool story this season obviously is Lee Holdsworth is back.
Yeah, awesome for Lee. Was unlucky to miss out in 2021. Sort of got shuffled out at Tickford Racing there, and then made the most of his opportunity to do some TCR and then win the Bathurst 1000 and get himself back on the grid here with Grove Racing, who are, they're really going to be an interesting one. They're again a lot of investment going in from new ownership and that sort of thing, and so these guys have got a lot to prove, and 2 motivated drivers to try and get the job done.
Yeah, definitely a lot of investment in that team. Excited to see how they go. All right, we're down at Team 18 now, and a lot of change down this end of pit lane for Scott Pye.
Yeah, well, in particular for Scott, but new engineer Richard Holway coming on, a guy that worked a lot with the Holden Racing team, Scott McLaughlin at GRM and that kind of thing. New colours for Scott with Seiko coming on board, replacing DeWalt. Team managers moved on. We've got a change there. Steve Henderson, who'd been with the team for quite a long time. So a lot of change to a team that had been stable for a long time. So really interesting to see whether these guys, I guess, react well or poorly to that. we're here now at Brad Jones Racing, where Simon, again, another midfield team that's sort of had a lot of change. How do you sort of see these guys shaping up in 2022?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because obviously we've got Jack Smith and Macaulay Jones stable on that side of things, but down here, sort of the top end of town for BJR, it's Bryce Forward and Andre Heimgartner. Andre, I think maybe wasn't happy where he was at Kelly Grove Racing, so this is sort of, I guess, a new opportunity for him to maybe try something new. Obviously new engineer, new car, lots of new environments for him. He's even moved to the Gold Coast, which I think he was really keen to sort of embrace the weather there and just get a different sort of change of lifestyle. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Andre goes. Bryce, obviously still bringing middies across from Walkenhorst United. Again, sort of a fresh start for him. So yeah, really fascinating to see how these two sort of, I guess, embrace the new challenge.
Now we're here at Repco Motorsport, where unlike a couple of the other teams in this sort of neck of the woods, very stable, same engineers, same drivers. Simon, what's year 2 look like for these guys in this program?
Yeah, really interesting for me, I guess, with Beaurepaires Motorsport. Brody Kostek and Will Brown obviously did an incredible job last year in their rookie season. Will obviously here at Sydney Motorsport Park sort of felt the highs and lows of things. Obviously those pit stop blunders which affected him in sort of the first instance, and then finally getting that win, which we thought was always going to come. In year 2, I guess the main thing for these guys is getting Brody that first win and then regularly being in the top 5. I think that's really got to be their aim. They're certainly capable of it. They've got the car pace. We know that. So I think, yeah, 2022 bodes well for these boys. All right, we're down here at Walkenhorst United, where there has been one really big change this season, hasn't there, Connor?
Absolutely. Nick Percat comes in. A lot of excitement around this. Nick sort of was always a Walkenhorst guy, and then sort of career took a different twist, I guess. But it comes back, and this is, there's a lot of expectation around Walkenhorst. Whether they can win the team's championship, they've openly said that that's a goal. They want to win the drivers' championship. Chaz and Lee Holdsworth for these guys last year were just dominant. So I think there's all eyes here. Nick, I think, will take a couple of rounds to kind of get up to speed, but they should have 2 genuine front-running cars before long. So really interesting story to watch.
I think you have to bank on both these guys being regular race winners this year, don't you think?
They'd be disappointed if they're not, right? They've made that deliberate aim to get 2 A-grade guys in. They've brought in another engineer. They're throwing everything at it. So these guys mean business.
Yeah. Ticket racing, really interesting prospect this season, aren't they, Connor? I have to think that Cameron Waters will be putting some money on being a championship contender.
I'd love to see it. Cam, I think, is one of the absolute aces of the category. Genuine top 3 driver. But Tickford have sort of been a bit up and down. Probably too much to be a championship contender. I'm not sure enough has changed. But I really hope it has, because it'd be great to see Cam up there. Tickford haven't won a championship since 2015 with Frosty. If they give him the car, Cam will absolutely be there. But Sydney was one of those places where they genuinely struggled last year, and we saw that across all the cars.
I think the interesting thing for me last year was that Townsville weekend where he really took it to Shane Van Gisbergen, and I guess for these guys this year, they've just got to do that every single weekend, right?
Well, and that weekend showed that Cam almost is set apart from anyone else, that he can actually go toe-to-toe with Shane, which I don't know if anyone else really can say that they can. Cam genuinely can. And having support from JC, Thomas Randall and Jake Kostecki, they can't just have one car up there, so that's going to be really important for those guys to be consistent at all tracks and across all cars.
Another point just to touch on as well, obviously James Courtney running with opposite lock backing this weekend, a little bit different to what we're used to. Obviously Boost moving their way down to Repco Motorsport.
We're getting down to the pointy end of pit lane now. The Shelby Power Racing team, these guys had a lot of change going into the 2021 season. 2022, they've got all the continuity their way. What's in store for these guys?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I guess we got so used to Scott McLaughlin and Fabian Coulthard doing so well for that team, 3 titles on the trot, probably could have even been 4. And then last year, a whole new driver lineup, Will Davison and Anton De Pasquale. Will came very close to winning. Anton obviously was a race winner. I guess for this year, they've got to be regularly in that position, right? I think a lot of occasions in 2021, they put themselves in that position, and then for one reason or another, it just didn't happen. There were a few little sort of, I guess, teething troubles for them on occasion. You know, here at SMP, Will probably should have got a win there until he had that unfortunate sort of incident with the electronics on his car. So 2022 for mine, I guess, is just consistency, just being consistently in a position to be race winners.
Yeah, and the team principal, Ben Croak, has said, you know, the way they finished last year, anything short of a championship, you know, will be unacceptable for these guys. So they're ready to take the fight to Red Bull Ample Racing.
And I guess starting here at SMP, a circuit where Anton De Pasquale was basically dominant. What was it, 22 of 30 sessions?
32 sessions, yeah. 22 of 32 he topped.
Yeah, just an incredible stat, you know, to think just how dominant he was. And, you know, I think he's got to start the season here like that. He's just got to top every single session and just lay down his marker.
And finally at Red Bull Ample Racing, these guys were awesome last year, you know, Drivers' Championship, Teams' Championship, but a lot's changed, you know, no more Roland Dane in a regular capacity, Jamie Whincup not behind the wheel anymore, and moves into that Roland sort of situation, so yeah, what do you reckon, are these guys going to stay on top or are they going to come back down the order?
I can't see much changing as far as where these guys are in the pecking order. You know, it's really fascinating. There has been a lot of chat, you know, obviously even on this side of the garage with Shane having a new engineer and Andrew Edwards, his third different engineer in 3 years effectively. Yeah, I don't know. I just, there is probably a lot of reliance put on the engineers, but I think at the end of the day, Shane's the one who's wheeling this thing, and he's been just so good the past, you know, basically 12, 18 months. You know, he's just been on another planet to some of these guys, and you know, chatting to a lot of the drivers, you and I both know that they're just sort of tearing their hair out, going, how are we going to catch this guy? I think last year Sandown was basically the one where everyone just went, nah, no chance, this guy is going to get it. He had a broken collarbone, he had broken ribs, he'd done his shoulder, he'd done everything basically, and still coming from the back of the grid managed to win that race. So in this garage, nothing changes. In that garage, it's going to be really fascinating, I think, with Brock, because you know, he's done effectively a season and a half in Super 2. It's been really quick, won the title obviously, but he's filling in the shoes of Jamie Whincup, who's also just happens to be sort of looking over his shoulder at the same time. So I think a lot of interest will be on Brock and what he's capable of doing this year. I think he's probably capable of a top 5. It'll be interesting to see sort of how it plays out. What do you think is sort of got to be the target for Brock?
I think somewhere in that top 8, I think, in the championship roughly. Like, you know, top 5 is going to be tough. It's going to be tough. There's a lot of really good drivers and really good teams. And historically, this championship's been tough for rookies.
Yep.
Erebus did break that kind of, or buck that trend a bit last year with Will Brown and Brody Kosecki, but yeah, I know speaking to people up and down the lane, like Brock is tremendously highly rated. So I guess this weekend we're going to get the first real look at where he might, you know, really pan out in the order. But I mean, but look, beyond that, I mean, so by the sounds of it, Shane's, in your opinion, the guy to beat in the championship?
I think he's the obvious favourite. All that momentum, it's just, I can't see much changing in the pecking order. It's just, I think maybe the gap might just come down. You know, that team down there, Shelby Power Racing team, they're doing a lot of good things at the moment. They sort of had a little bit of momentum at the back end of last year here at SMP. So I guess it's for them converting it, you know?
Well, yeah, you know, I like to be different. I like to go buck the trend. I'm saying Anton De Pasquale wins the championship this year. All the pieces are there, just needs to all be put together, and I think those guys are ready to do it.
Right, well, I've got Shane, he's got Anton. Who are you picking to win the 2022 Repco Supercars Championship? Leave a comment below and stay tuned to Speed Cafe for all your latest motor racing news.
The Nissan Skyline R32 and R33 GTRs are legendary performance cars that make big power, so maintaining their RB26 power plants is important. Many owners go for premium engine oil, but now Ryco has developed a premium oil filter called Syntec for your turbo engine. It removes 99.8% of contaminants and features synthetic nanofiber filter media to ensure maximum oil flow. It also includes a silicon anti-drain valve that keeps your oil filter full of oil between startups. Ask your mechanic for Ryco Syntec.